Good evening and welcome back to the public portion of the council meeting for April 1st, 2020. We're resuming at 7:11 p.m. We will be going back in camera to conclude the last of the items a bit later. We're on item 4 now. I don't believe we have any presentations or recognitions. We have no delegations tonight, and I don't believe we have a consent agenda. So we go on to item 7, confirmation of minutes. 7.1, adoption of the March 17th, 2020 special council meeting minutes.
Councillor Bauer, I move that council adopt the March 17, 2020 special council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you for that. You've all heard the motion. All in favor, Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Councillor Peterson?
Aye.
Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And I am an aye. 7.2, adoption of the March 18th, 2020 regular council meeting minutes.
Councillor Cox, I wish that we adopt the March 18th, 2020 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor, Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Councillor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Councillor Peterson?
Aye.
Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. 7.3, adoption of the March 20th, 2020, 3 p.m. special council meeting minutes. And just as a reminder, council, we still have 2 people who really need to sign that document. It's very important, and the admin is really looking for that. So please do that ASAP. Looking for a motion.
Peterson, I move adoption of the March 20th, 2020, 3 p.m. special council meeting minutes.
Thank you for that, Councillor. All in favor, Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Councillor Peterson?
Aye.
Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And Mayor Fuel is an aye as well, so that is carried. 7.4, adoption of the March 20th, 2020, 5 p.m. special council meeting minutes.
I can move that.
So we have a motion from Councillor Montgomery. All in favor, Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Councillor Peterson?
Aye.
Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And I am also an aye, so that motion is carried. Item 8, we have no tabled items. Item 9, items or reports from administration. Anything from admin? No. Committee reports 10, and 10.1, reports from councillors from committees in which they sit. If you have one, you could maybe just say your last name and then you could present it.
Sobel,
Okay?
is that me? Am I
You're
on?
live, you're on, yep.
Okay, thank you. This is in regards to Strathmore District Chamber of Commerce report, Your Worship. The Chamber met actually earlier today via Zoom, which is an amazing conference tool that I wish we were using. And these were the highlights of our meeting. Council representatives, myself and Wheatland County Councillor Bigger, provided updates in regards to COVID-19 in their respective areas. Discussion was also had in regards to the Chamber's annual general meeting, originally scheduled for March 30th. With newfound virtual meeting abilities now evident, it was suggested that the meeting could take place in that fashion, and a motion to hold our meeting, AGM, on Thursday, April 30th at 2 p.m. was carried. Our executive director discussed a number of options as to how the Chamber can continue to assist our area's businesses, and more will come forth on that in the near future. A motion was made by Wheatland County Councillor Bigger, which would see the Chamber's name changed to Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce, and the board approved this matter to go to the AGM for a membership vote, as it is a bylaw change. All costs pertaining to this issue are the responsibility of Wheatland County. Many of the Chamber's summertime events are tentatively postponed, such as Meet Your Neighbor Festival and the Business Beautification Project. The board also approved the motion to see chamber fees collection, the fees collection for current members be postponed until July 1st, and to have any new applications be accepted without payment, with said payment also not due until July 1st at a prorated fee. Director Tammy Dupre was voted in as the chamber's new membership team lead. And finally, the town's economic development rep, who's Chuck Proctor, Chuck, advised of a new business hotline which the town has started. Anyone needing information regarding any type of business support, including various provincial and federal grant programs, can call 403-361-2138, Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and someone will provide some guidance and assistance. And Your Worship, I just want to add to Jen or Deborah that I will email this report to you for the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other reports?
Peterson?
Thank you.
I just wanted to report on Wheatland Housing. They are, if you remember, they locked down several days before the provincial requirement to do so. The residents are healthy, and the staff have been extraordinary in their continued commitment. And the Wheatland Area Hospice, who now have voting rights on the Wheatland Housing Management Body, have asked to suspend the special requisition due to the pressures that people are all feeling because of the COVID crisis. And if Councillor Bauer has nothing, I can report a little bit on the Strathmore Overnight Shelter.
That would be great, Councillor Peterson. Thank you.
So the Strathmore Overnight Shelter continues to operate, and they've had great cooperation from our Siksika neighbors in assistance. And we were taking great precautions for anybody that had any of the clientele who were worried about health, and they were able to isolate. And I just want to give a huge shout out to persons in the community, hotel industry, who have really helped us with this. We were incredibly fortunate in that we had no cases at all, but we were able to make sure that people were able to isolate. And in order to assist in that, our ECC was very timely in being able to get that to us. And I'm happy to report that the Strathmore Overnight Shelter will fully refund that to the community. And the overnight shelter has been the beneficiary of a great deal of support throughout from this community, from the town and the county, and other agencies. So we're very grateful to everyone, Tracy and her crew, and everyone else in community. Thank you, Your Worship. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Any other councillor reports? Seeing or hearing none, I guess we're looking for a motion to accept the reports as presented.
Sobel, so
Councillor
moved.
Okay, we have a motion from Councillor Sobel. All in favor? Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Councillor Peterson?
Aye.
Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And I am an aye, so that motion is carried. Item 11, items directly related to council. I don't believe we have that. Item 12, bylaws. 12.1, bylaw number 20-08, emergency and working capital borrowing bylaw. And Mel Teedy is here.
Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw 20-08 provides for funding of the emergency needs of the pandemic situation, currently not included in the 2020 operating budget. The second quarter of the calendar and fiscal year is the quarter with the lowest available working capital and cash in the bank to meet financial obligations of the town. With the deferral of utility account receipts combined with requests from customers to come off the TIPS monthly tax payment program, this will place the town in need of additional cash resources. The closure of the recreation venues has put a halt to one of our revenue sources, but the expense of the facilities continue on. The report outlines some of the effects of a 10% payment deferral rate. We at this time do not know if we will be at 10% or a much higher number. During our normal construction season for the town, we have a cash requirement of an additional $2.5 to $3 million that we normally would fund from other sources that would need to go into our bank. We are reaching out to some of our major supply organizations to increase the terms of our current payment due dates in an effort to preserve our cash and keep some money in the bank. One of the major suppliers has agreed to increase the days due, and one has declined the request. The recommendation would be to borrow the $3 million in two draws, the first as soon as practical and the second on an as-needed basis for a one-year term. The interest cost of a one-year $3 million borrow would be $60,000 approximately. Those are my comments, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Teedy. Questions from Council? Bauer?
No questions, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Cox?
No questions, Your Worship. I recommend that council give first reading to borrowing bylaw 20-08, emergency and working capital borrowing bylaw. I think it's a great thing and we need to do it.
Thank you for that. We have a motion for first reading. All in favor, Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Councillor Peterson?
Aye.
Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. So we have a motion, the motion is carried unanimously for first reading.
Your Worship, Sobel, I'll give second reading.
Okay, we have a motion for second reading, and now we have second reading, or a motion for second reading. There can be discussion. Councillor Bauer, do you have any discussion items?
I think we have. Do we not have to read the second reading first, vote on that, Your Worship?
I thought
But we can,
I think once
we
the
have to ask
motion is on the floor, we can discuss it and then we vote for it or not. So, any discussion from Bauer?
no, Your Worship.
Councillor Cox?
I'm fine, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Nothing, Your Worship. Thank you.
Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Teedy. So the question has to do with the term, and that is it better to go at this point with like a fixed rate, or can we do a floating rate? I think I feel like interest rates are probably going to be dropping further. So and I understand we're doing this in kind of multiple borrows, so that kind of at least kind of hedges a bit. But can we look at getting like more favorable terms?
We certainly can ask. However, I think we want to rely on some certainty as far as the term and length of borrow, and that's why the recommendation was the 1 year. If we go to a variable rate, we're subject both to increase and decrease on the rate, but the term loan for 1 year would be at a lower rate than any variable rate.
And we plan on paying this back using like what kind of means?
intent of the borrow is to cash flow the deferral of utilities and taxes. So as the town receives full payment for those, presumably receiving full payment, that it would be just paid back from the additional cash we would receive subsequent to the present situation.
And are we, I guess, what is the contingency for if a certain percentage of people just default entirely and don't make it up?
So on the utility side, we have the option of placing the past due utility counts on the tax roll and, or on the tax account, pardon me. And then tax accounts are always recoverable through a taxation sale, but that is down the road 2 to 3 years. So there would be a definite time period before we could recover any arrears on taxes.
Okay. Yeah, and so for that reason, I'm wondering if it might be smarter to go with a longer term, just so that, in case that, a certain percent do actually default, that we are able to recover that money, or at least let's say not recover it, but at least, we can kind of, we won't have to cover the money, next year if we're short.
If we do a one-year term and require further funding, we could extend the one-year term into 2 years. I do not foresee a problem, but if we finance it over 2 years, the rate would be slightly higher than the one-year rate. The one-year term rate would be the lowest possible rate that there would be available.
And so you're expecting that to be about 2%?
2% or less.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, that's all I have for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Any other discussion items? Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Teedy, the requirement, regardless, as far as I know, is still for municipalities to turn in balanced budgets at the end of each year. That hasn't changed?
That is correct. We have not received from Municipal Affairs any financial adjustments.
So you mentioned in your preliminary report that one institution had declined opportunity for any kind of servicing arrangement, and I'm assuming that it's not fortuitous for you to tell us who that is. But I would ask, do you anticipate that provincial or federal governments may direct institutions to offer municipalities the same concessions that other entities facing dire consequences have been able to access?
That is a real difficult question, whether the federal government will announce anything. I would have expected that would come from provincial sources before it would come from federal.
I think so. Yeah.
Brian?
So if we can't anticipate that or if the losses that we have on the time lapse aren't compensated by the province, then number 3 in bylaw 20-08 on page 26 gives us the opportunity to raise taxes to focus on the indebtedness, and so we don't necessarily need to raise tax rates, but taxes would have to be diverted to meet that indebtedness for us to be able to balance our budget, I am assuming.
Currently, we have a balanced budget. However, if we have expenses not currently within the budget, we would have to either take from reserves or fund those expenses in some ways.
Yeah. Yes, I understand. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
Oh, did you have any discussion points?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no question. No questions. Sorry.
Okay, now I'll go back to the vote. You're an aye, so Councillor Bauer? Are you in favor?
Was it moved, Your Worship?
Yes, we have a motion on the floor for second reading. We've had discussion.
Thank you.
So Councillor Bauer, are you in favor? Councillor Bauer?
I don't think the second reading was read, Your Worship.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it was.
No, that's where I was coming from, but I can read it now if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
I would move that council give second reading to borrowing bylaw 20-08 emergency and working capital borrowing bylaw.
Okay, thank you. And I guess we had our discussion before that then, so we'll just muddle through. Councillor Bauer, are you in favor? Councillor Bauer? Can someone text Councillor Bauer? Or, okay, we have an email going to her. Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Councillor Peterson?
Aye.
Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And I am an aye. And Councillor Bauer, are you here yet?
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
For some reason, my earbuds came out, I think.
Okay, are you in favor then for that motion for second reading?
Yes, I am, Your Worship.
Okay, so that motion is carried.
Councillor Corbeil?
Yes?
I move the council give unanimous consent to third and final reading of borrowing bylaw number 20-08, emergency and working capital borrowing bylaw.
Thank you for that motion. All in favor, Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Councillor Peterson?
Aye.
Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So that motion is carried.
Your Worship, Peterson, I would move that council give third and final reading to borrowing bylaw number 20-08, emergency and working capital borrowing bylaw.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor for third and final reading. Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Councillor Peterson?
Aye.
Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And I am an aye, so that motion is carried. And that brings us to item 12.2, which I believe we're,
We need one more. We need one more, Your Worship.
oh, sorry.
I would move that council authorize mayor and CAO to sign borrowing documentation to complete the borrowing contained within the borrowing bylaw number 20-08, emergency and working capital borrowing bylaw.
Thank you for that. You caught that. I missed it totally. My apologies. We have a motion on the floor. Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery?
Aye.
Councillor
He's wrong.
Peterson?
Aye.
Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And I am an aye. And that now brings us to 12.2, which I believe we're,
Counselor-
pardon?
Sorry, Your Worship, this is Councillor Cox.
Yeah?
Jen has unanimous consent to third and final reading, but then she also has third and final reading. So are we missing still a motion?
No, we did those.
We're good.
I think we're good.
Yep.
Deborah says we're good. All right, so we have 12.2, which I believe we're postponing until April 15th. Jennifer, Deborah, we are postponing? Okay, thank you. So that brings us to urgent business, which I believe we don't have. Well, there's lots of urgent business.
Mayor Fuel,
Deborah?
could we please have a motion to move that? I've emailed that motion out to council.
Oh, thank you. So there is a motion that has been sent to you, if someone could read it for bylaw 20-09.
Your Worship, Peterson, I would move that Council postpone item number 20-09 MSI interim funding bylaw to the April 15th, 2020 regular council meeting.
Thank you for that. We have a motion on the floor. Councillor Bauer,
Aye.
Councillor Cox,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil,
Aye.
Councillor Montgomery,
Aye.
Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I just have a question for clarification. Was this going to come before the Committee of the Whole meeting for a rise and report, or were we actually waiting till that third meeting?
I believe we're waiting till the 15th of April.
I vote in favor, Your Worship.
James? Okay. Thank you for that. And Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And I am an aye, so that is in favor of a postponement to April 15th. Urgent business, I don't think we have. Item 14, questions between councillors and council statements. Administrative inquiries. Deborah, do we have any?
No, Your Worship, there are none tonight.
Thank you. So at this time, I'm looking for a motion to go back in camera.
Councillor Corbeil, I move we go back in camera.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bauer?
Aye.
Councillor Cox?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Corbeil?
Aye.
Councillor
Aye.
Montgomery? Councillor Peterson?
Aye.
Councillor Sobel?
Aye.
And I am in favor. So we're back in camera. And are you folks okay
Councillor
if we
Montgomery
take?
needs a detention.
Yes. I second that.
Could,
Why, I said aye.
councillors, we've just had a request for a quick 2-minute break